In this video, we'll be talking about number formats. What are number formats? I know we've discussed it already, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail into this chapter and the different types of formatting. So general, money, percentages, fractions, dates, the thousands, separator, and increasing decimals, and why it's important for Excel to be formatted in the correct way. So as I mentioned previously, Excel is a computer and it has difficulty understanding unless you put things in a very simple and structured way. For example, with percentages, if I type in 8%, Excel is not going to understand what that means. To Excel, this simply means text, that you're writing something in text. If you want to write 8% as such, Google will recognize that as a percentage. Let's see what happens when we then change that to a number. It's going to turn that into 0.08. What if we just type 8 now as a number and we want to convert that to a percentage? Well, Excel now thinks that this is 800%, which is very far off what we originally intended. So the intention of this is that we must learn to be quite precise when we're entering data in terms of the structure. So that what we need to enter for a percentage is always put the percentage sign after we enter it in. So Google knows straight away what kind of text it is. So as you can see, and as we've discussed before, Excel will try and assume what the correct template of the data is. So for this general text, Excel didn't know what it was, so it's applied general. When we typed in a percentage sign, Excel did know and it assumed it was a percentage correctly. Sometimes it gets it wrong though. For example, we don't want this to be a percentage, we want this to be a number. So in this case, we actually have to change this there and press that. And this is important because depending on what Excel understands the number to be is going to impact both the presentation of it, but also how Excel applies formulas to it. For example, if we drag this fill handle down now, as you can see, Excel understands it's a number, so it's going to add +1. What about this one, this 8% over here? Because Excel doesn't know that it's a number, it thinks it's text. If we drag this down, all Excel is going to do is copy it because it thinks it's doing text. It's no different in Excel's mind that we're typing out polka dot %. It's the exact same thing. Obviously, there's no pattern in this. It's just going to copy that down. It's similar with dates as well. In fact, it's even trickier with dates. So, if I write January 1, Excel has tried to figure out what this is, and it's assumed that it's a date. What if we write January the 1st? Excel doesn't understand what that is, okay? So for dates, we highly recommend that when you're inserting a date, put it in like this, 01/01/2020. So as you can see, Google knows straight away that that is a date format. You can customize this as well. If you prefer to see this as a long date, you can change that. But we'll talk about customization a little bit later. So again, let's try the handle pull test. So first of all, let's drag down this one where we just wrote it in text. Let's see what happens. Unexpectedly, the text has remained the same and Excel's just copied it down because it didn't know what format it was. Now what about this that Excel does know is a date? What happens when we drag this down? Okay, so Excel knows it's a date, so it's put in a pattern of adding +1 day, and it's made it easy to apply a formula to. It also means that we can use date formats like end of month formula to figure out what's the last day in this particular month. So we can work that out. Let's just change that to a date. And then we'll know what's the end of date 1 month from now, 0 months from now, and so forth. So we can actually do some formulas on it. But if we try and do that with the text, it doesn't work. So again, another lesson as to why getting the correct format is very important. But I don't want to spend any more time going through the nuances of getting that ready because we've talked about it before. Just remember that it's very important to get whatever data input you're inserting in the correct number format. So for a percent, put a percent. For a number, put a number. For a date, put it in that date format, and so forth. If you want to put a currency, start off with a number and press the accounting or the currency, and it'll tell you the number of decimals. So let's go back to our guideline. So we've talked about general formatting and the importance of it and why we need to get that in the right order to use formulas and so forth in Excel, and how there's different formulas for money, for percentages, and for fractions. So we're currently on the currency. We've got the percentages / fractions one over here, and numbers over here. We can also choose from time and date and fractions and so forth. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is the thousands separator. So I've typed a number over here, $1 million. However, it's quite difficult to read because there's no separator in this number by default. So there's a few workarounds. Number one is we can very quickly press the comma style, which adds in a thousand separator. And straight away, that's very much easier to read. Now we can also customize what our numbers look like, and we'll go through that in a moment. But the first thing I want to go through is increasing and decreasing decimals. So I don't want to see those 2 decimals there. I'm dealing with large numbers, so I don't need decimals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this button up here and decrease decimals. So now we've gone through the basics of number formatting. I want to show you something a little bit more sophisticated, which is actually coming up with your own custom number formats. So this is quite important when you're dealing with a lot of numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a random data set with a whole bunch of negative numbers and large numbers. Okay, let's format that as a number so Excel understands. Okay, and then let's drag this across. Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of random numbers right now. Let's just auto fit these columns as well so that they look a little bit better. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to be able to see the negative numbers really easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom number set because this one isn't working for me. So I'm going to select all my numbers that I want to format. I'm going to go up here to my number and I'm going to go more number formats. Okay, so within this drop down over here, we're given a few high level ones, so number, date, etc. However, if you're within this more section, within each of those categories, Excel gives you a number of further examples. For example, we can go to number, and Excel's giving us some additional customizations. For example, we can change how negative numbers look. We can turn them into a red number. We can include a thousand separator or not, and we can change the number of decimal places. So let's try this one first of all, because maybe this one will look good. Okay, so that's good. I can see some negative numbers in there. However, this one's going to cause an issue for me because these negative numbers, and I can tell it's negative because in the formula bar it shows as a negative, whilst they're showing up as red in here, I also want to see a negative or a bracket in front so it doesn't look like a positive number. So we're going to have to do some more customization, unfortunately. So let's select that data set again and customize those numbers. This time what we're going to do is actually we're going to go into custom and we're going to have a look through what they have and maybe even make our own custom format. So these can be quite difficult to understand, but what I'd recommend is I'd scroll up the top and start with the most basic one. So basically what this does, and it gives you an example at the top as well. So if we're going to select a particular number, for example, is 4406, we can actually see in the live preview what it's going to look like after we apply that formatting. And I've chosen a negative number because I want to see how it's going to look as a negative number. So we can just scroll down and see which one we like. So even though these long code might not make sense to you, the sample will. So what I want to see is I want to see a one with a bracket at the front. So something like this could be very good. So I might go like that, but let's have a look through and see what else might be good. We've got some currencies in there. Okay, so the best one in there was this one with the brackets. Let's find that. Okay, so I want to use this one. So basically, how the number structure works in here is every time you see a semicolon, so there's one there, what we're seeing is it's a different treatment for negative numbers, positive numbers, and 0. So we can actually go in and change some numbers around here, and it's going to impact how we are showing a negative number, 0, and positive number. So what I want to do in here is I want to get rid of the decimal place. So I'm going to delete those two numbers there. I'm going to delete that. And over here, I'm going to delete this as well. So there we go. I've deleted all the decimals from the number. So what else can we do? We can change in a negative number, we can change this into a square bracket maybe, and so forth. So we can make our own custom changes. This is the only change that I want to make. And now I can see that the number looks exactly how I would like it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to format paint that, as we talked about before, and I'm going to drag it across the whole number set, and now all my numbers are going to be formatted a certain way. And that is the end of Unit 13, Formatting Numbers in Excel.